What's up, folks? Welcome to the Deep Three podcast. Filling in for your host, Matt, today. It's me, your beloved John. Here with the boys. Boys, how you doing?
Good.
I'm happy. That's all I gotta say.
Good. Yeah, there we go. That's what you like to hear. Yeah, Kevin looking sharp.
Thank you.
You might notice today we got a lot of big hoodie theme going on right now. That's because our boy Sam hooked us up with some really fresh hoodies here. I have a Luka hoodie. This is really good for people listening at home talking about visual content. But yeah, hey, you know what? This is exciting. It was actually kind of a busy week in the NBA. We got a lot of stuff to go over, so I figure why don't we just dive right into it? But let's start first. I think it's important to note that we should all have a little bit of reverence today on this day of recording. It's kind of a very holy and important day. It is actually the feast day, the celebration of the birth of Luka Doncic. Luka's 22 years old, folks. He's 22 years old. He's 2 years younger than I am. And I'm wearing his shirt. So that's tight, but yeah, that's fun. And so, yeah, let's just dive right into the actual stuff here. So, folks,
before you jump in, John, as the Luka stan, and it's his birthday, what is your favorite moment from Luka's gameplay so far in his entire 3-year career?
Hands down, favorite moment was the buzzer beater against the Clippers in the bubble playoffs. That is the stuff of legend. That is the moment. He got the nickname Luka Magic like halfway through his rookie year. So, like, of course, obviously he's been doing this shit the whole time he's been around. But, like, that was the one where it was like, okay, there's actual stakes. Like, this is a playoff game. He showed up. He was not afraid against two of the best wing defenders in the NBA. Whatever you would like to say about Paul George. But that was the moment. That was Luka's moment. And now they'll make the playoffs. Speaking of the playoffs, that's where we're heading soon because the league just released their second half schedule and it starts March 10th. Kind of thought that there might be a little bit of a longer break. Are you guys a little surprised to hear that things are just going to get right into the swing of things after All-Star?
Yeah, I think especially after there was a tiny little break between, especially since the Lakers won in the bubble and then when the season started and then things just have not stopped at all. And now they're like, well, we're going to not really have a break here either. We're just going to keep going. Like, let's get it on. I don't know if that's the best move, but kind of out of our control.
Yeah, I just think that it's like, I'm not surprised because the whole thing was All-Star break comes. Let's not have All-Star break. Let's have a 10-day vacation for everyone to kind of chillax, have a good time. And then they just kind of send everyone to All-Star with hopes of getting an actual break. And realistically, they get like 2 days off. And it's not even 2 days off. It's the comeback, kind of quarantine for a bit, and then head back for the games again. So it's ridiculous. But once again, there's money. So you got to do it for the money. Do it for the bag.
Do it for the bag. Yeah, we got to do it for the honey buns. And speaking of honey buns, what are the odds that, this game is taking place in Atlanta? I don't know if you've noticed, but there is a lot of exciting events being scheduled around Atlanta during this weekend. Do you think that there's a good odd here that a lot of the games on March 10th are going to be postponed anyway?
Oh, yeah, that's going to happen. I'll be joining James Harden, the club. You guys will catch me if you see me on the gram. Have a good time. Have a good time.
All right. So, I mean, that's crazy. The league is just rolling along. But, speaking of LeBron James, he's 36. And he's also been getting called out a little bit of attention over in the world of football, soccer, as we call it here. Been watching Ted Lasso, so I'm calling it by its proper name now. There's a soccer star. Sam, do you know how to say this name?
Oh, my boy, Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
That's 30 points for what I'm going to assume is correct. Zlatan, too many ill-placed L's. had some ill-placed thoughts for LeBron. He said that it doesn't look good and it's a mistake for LeBron and people of his stature in sports to be getting involved in politics. As you can imagine, LeBron was not thrilled about this. What do you guys think about these comments?
I mean, I feel like it's almost kind of like the same shit, different day kind of thing. Like we've been through this shit before. We've been through the shut up and dribble thing before. It never goes over well. And LeBron or whoever always comes out and is like, no, I'm not going to just be a sports star with nothing to say and nothing going on in my head. I think he's right. I think he shouldn't have to just, if he doesn't want to, he shouldn't have to just shut up and play the game. Like, he can talk about whatever he wants to talk about, and he has a platform to do it. So more power to him if he wants to. And I don't know. I think we've seen this all play out before. So there's nothing new here to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would add on. It's funny that like Ibrahimovic is like this because apparently before the reason he came back to the States was because he was like racially criticized back in his home country of Sweden because his last name doesn't match like a Swedish last name. So we were like, "You're not Swedish," and he's like, "Oh no, I'm not Swedish." And he went to the States for like a year, and then he went back. So I just found it really hypocritical, and I think it's kind of like sad because it's a fellow like athlete doing this, but like Zetlon, you haven't won shit in your life. Like, you're skilled, but you haven't won shit. LeBron's got rings. He got the bag. He got his own shoes. Like, he does whatever he wants. I'm sorry. That's just how the league is. We saw that, right? If the king says we do something, we follow suit. Even Giannis say that, which is like, I think that's very powerful to hear. So, it's a good move. I think we all knew that LeBron was going to be like, no, I own every platform in the world at this point. So I can say whenever I want, and everyone's going to follow my lead. So, just don't follow my lead in the 2014 finals against my San Antonio Spurs. Because as soon as he said that, dead meat.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. I think that Mr. Z, he said something in there that is interesting, and it's just that, like, just because you're the best at something doesn't mean you know about other things. And I think that's valid, but I think it's a criticism that is often overly levied to athletes. Not a lot of people tossing that same thing over at fuckers like Elon Musk or like people like that shit who, are very smart or good at their field, but that doesn't mean they have any idea how healthcare works. That doesn't, I think that people use their platforms how they want to. And that's how LeBron chooses to use his. And I think it's great. More power to him, but, kind of in a similar vein of like a little bit of a kind of a sad political moment here. Jeremy Lin actually recently just came out and talked about some of the treatment he's been receiving in the G League. He said that on court, people have been taunting him. Other players have been calling him coronavirus on court. Obviously, especially in America right now, there's a huge, huge wave of anti-Asian discrimination. This is obviously a really like tragic, sad case. But what do you guys think about this? What do you think that is there anything you think the league should be doing in response to it? Things like that.
I'm someone that's like, obviously I'm the only like brown guy here, so I'm someone who face like a lot of like criticism, a lot of hate just because I am of a certain ethnicity and stuff like that. So I think there's different ways to approach it. I think the NBA should be very like blatantly open about it, because it comes as two ways, right? In a way of if you don't address it, then you do. It sounds really bad, but you lose a lot of business network, right? Especially in the Asian markets. That was the whole thing with China, right? Just saying that just because Daryl Morey was like Hong Kong should be free, and then the NBA didn't really make a stance on it. Really, was kind of embarrassing on my end because it didn't seem like they were supporting really anyone. And realistically, by not supporting, you're supporting the bigger guys. And I think you need to support the people that have been helping you make money at the end of the day, and that's your players. Like you said, I think this has been a huge wave. As soon as like the Lunar New Year happened, it's just been a huge wave. Just like, I don't know, maybe it's just media's just been making it more relevant, and it should be more relevant. But it's kind of a shame just because like we don't have that many Asian stars because they don't find it safe to be here. I mean, I've heard like Yao Ming say that he did retire early, not just because of injury, but just because he didn't feel welcomed here. And it's kind of sad because we don't get the kind of talent that we do see overseas come over here. But I think the NBA should really, similar to BLM, and I think BLM should be pushed even as hard too, especially in the NBA, but they should build a real platform essentially for Asian Americans.
Yeah, and I think that Jeremy, he made a really, really insightful point, and it's that a lot of the conversation around race in America tends to be really reductive in a way where like we can only focus on one like racial minority at a time, and that's just the way that the national conversation goes. But that's not something you can actually do to. There's so many like problems, very like ingrained issues with race in America. You're doing a disservice to others by pretending that only one of these things is happening at once. Like right now, you know, the anti-Asian discrimination is a bigger media issue at the moment, but that doesn't mean that like there's still not anti-Black racism, you know, like anti-Latinx, like racism, like things like that. They're all still happening. They're all happening at the same time. And I think that Jeremy did a really good job of making it a conversation of like, it's a big problem specifically with anti-Asian racism, but like that doesn't mean that all the other issues don't matter too. Like we can work together on this, and I thought that was really insightful. Yeah, so I'd say let's see. I want to talk about our friend Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving is a man. Yeah, our pal. You know. He's got a lot of thoughts. He's got a lot of thoughts in his head swirling around all the time. This man's a deep thinker. One thing that he's really big on at the moment is that the NBA logo should be replaced with Kobe Bryant. Now, I don't know. Sure. That's where like whatever. But what do you guys think about this, Kevin? Kevin, what do you think? Should they take the photo that is technically not Jerry West? According to the league, it is technically not Jerry West for licensing reasons, basically. Should they replace that with an image of Kobe Bryant?
I mean, I kind of agree with you. Like, sure, it really doesn't matter. Like, I think a lot of people are getting overly upset about it. Like, Doc Rivers came out and said something like, "Oh, what are we going to replace it every 10 years now?" Like, some person, and like. No, but it hasn't been changed ever, right? So if the league decided that now is a good time to change it and they wanted to choose Kobe, I think Kobe's a great choice for it. I think that does pay him some respects. Maybe not the best thing they could do, but I think it's a non-issue. Like I think people are getting heated about this because they want something to get heated about, and like I'm cool with it if they want to do it, but I really am gonna think once about it, be like, oh, that's cool, and then move on, you know.
Yeah, and here's what I'll ask Sam, like, because this is where I'm kind of thinking is like, is this even something that the league would even like actually consider as far as like if they explicitly use an image of Kobe Bryant, that means that they're going to have to pay like licensing fees for using his image, and they're going to actually have to pay him and his family for using his likeness. And that's a lot of money because that logo appears everywhere. Like, do you think that's something the league would even actually consider?
No, not at all. I make it very clear. Like Adam Silver is in it for the bag. I'm sorry. He's on a weird rampage to where I get it completely, but I just don't like the double face of it. Like he's just two-facing this, and it gets kind of annoying I can see it being very annoying for a lot of people. I know Jerry West has made it very clear that he actually doesn't like being the logo. Like he said that for like so many years, for like 30 years almost. And honestly, it's not even that respectful to have it as Kobe because I don't even think I look at the NBA logo that much. I just see NBA. I don't see the logo. Like for baseball, it makes it more blatant because it's a baseball bat. There's nothing really defined because I can't even see the ball. You know, I don't even see the ball at that point. And the logo just seems. The logo was very important early on. Like when you used to be on NBC, they just show the logo on there. But now they show basketball like on ESPN. It's like that's what basketball is. Just show basketball. I don't care about the NBA aspect of it. So I just found it interesting because I find okay. First off, can we talk about Kyrie real quick? I think Kyrie,
Yeah.
it looks like he's done like a lot of cocaine. Like the man's looked like he's seen some shit. I don't know if you guys seen his face. Like he looks like he's seen shit. Like it's like the dude is like awkwardly skinny and like all the places. I don't know what happened to him. I hope he isn't doing cocaine, but if he is, maybe he's so enlightened that he's just doing some interesting stuff, on the side. But do we think that? Kyrie team, do we think that Kyrie's opinion really matters in any of the stands compared? Like, do we think he's that impactful compared to a LeBron, compared to a Kevin Durant, or hell, even James Harden? Like, I feel like we were so more relevant to James Harden's movement compared to a Kyrie Irving, because it seemed like Kyrie Irving was just more of a. Granted, James Harden seemed more of a baby, but Kyrie Irving was actually like complained too, but we didn't really care about him, to be honest. Like he went to Brooklyn. Brooklyn made very clear that we will not sign you unless you get Kevin Durant. I think that has some sort of weight to that. But what do you guys think in terms of Kyrie's weight into the NBA?
I think that like right now, just because of what his reputation is, often unfairly, I think that there could not be a worse spokesman for this than Kyrie Irving, unfortunately. Admittedly, it's like it's a little emotionally viable as an argument because Kyrie and Kobe, like there was a lot of love there, and you could tell that in like the time after Kobe's passing, like there was a lot of love there, and so in that way, it's coming from a good place. I think that unfortunately, a lot of people in the league and at least in the media maybe don't take Kyrie super seriously anymore. I can tell, like a lot of people, we still love and respect as Gabe, but I feel like a lot of people don't take Kyrie the person as seriously, and sometimes that kind of makes sense. Just like like when he randomly leaves for 7 games, and sometimes it's like, okay, we're ignoring like all the good things that he does do in his community because of that kind of behavior. But yeah, I don't think Kyrie is maybe the best spokesperson for something like this. If it's earnestly something the players want the league to do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I guess I would also like to add, Kevin, in your thoughts. Let's say NBA wants to change the logo. Who's the face? Do you think? Who do you think should be the face at that point if they wanted to choose?
I think if they were going to change it, I think Kobe is a good one to have if they're going into it knowing that they want to change it. I think that again, it's not the most respectful thing they could do, but I think it does kind of pay tribute a little bit to him. And I think having like another player who's this sounds bad, but having it be another player who's still like alive and active in the community, it would be kind of like weird. So I think having it be like this tribute kind of thing rather than this just icon to point to someone else, I think that's the better way to do it. Again, maybe not the best thing to do, but I think I would rather it be something like that than have it be like LeBron James or something like that. Like I that seems really weird.
I bet if they wanted a discount version of this, they could definitely go for someone like Tim Duncan. I feel like I think that he would be like, I don't want this. And they'd be like, here's a little money. And then like, I don't care. I don't watch the games anyway. Similar impact career-wise. No one's clamoring for TD, though. So, okay, let's see. Yeah, there's some really exciting news. So, just like a year or two ago, LeBron opened his school in Akron. Mm-hmm. That was awesome. That was really exciting. Following in LeBron's footsteps, Russell Westbrook is opening a school of his own in his hometown of LA. What do you think about this, guys? And let's also talk a little bit while we're here about like the growth and the improvement we've seen from Russ in the past like couple weeks too. While we're at it, Kevin, get going.
No, I think the opening a school thing is awesome. I mean, you always love to hear like stories like this about guys that we kind of shit on a bunch doing actually really good things for their own communities. So it's awesome to hear stuff like that. Like John, you talked about like Kyrie's contributions to the community too. Like I think Kyrie and Russ are both people they're easy to poke fun at a little bit. So again, hearing these cool stories like this is, I think, just a testament to all of these NBA players that really are truly good people and want to just make differences in their community, no matter how much shit we give them. And yeah, watching him play recently has been, I wouldn't say good, but the Wizards are like a half game behind or a game and a half behind or something
They're
like that.
in the hunt, baby.
Like, technically they're not out of it, so you got to give them some credit, I guess.
I think they have a better shot of making the playoffs now than they did last year when they were in the bubble. And here's what I'll say. I actually think that I think they can pull it off because the East is so dumb and bad at the bottom. It's really so tight. It's like a game difference between all these teams from basically the 4 seed down. It's like 1 or 2 games. I actually think they got a shot here. But Sam, tell me a little bit more about your thoughts on Russ this year. Like, what you could talk about the school, you could talk about his play recently. You could tell me I'm crazy about the Wizards, but what are you thinking?
I think Russell Westbrook. I think the one thing we can respect from Russell Westbrook is the amount of loyalty he has for his fan base. For OKC, we know it was probably looking back from a winning standpoint, a dumb mistake. But hey, I mean, if I'm given the reins to quote unquote lead a team, I'm going to stay there. I'm probably going to stay there because then I'm a face now at that point. But I don't think he cared about that. I think he genuinely cared about just trying to be the best person. And I think we've seen him. He has his own company, Honor the Gift, where he donates actually, I think 30% of his proceeds go to a charity. And opening a school is a perfect thing for him. And I think he's been playing pretty well still. I mean, almost averaging a double-double, missed 5 games, 6 games, and still averaging a double-double. It's still pretty impressive for what we call a decline. For me, I think he is turning into the kind of like the Chris Paul form where he might be able to actually revitalize a really trash team, which was the Wizards, in my opinion, because didn't have John Wall, Bradley Beal being stuck in trash for so long. And nothing's working for this team because it's injuries and not signing the right people. And when your GM is worked for baseball as a prior GM, I don't really have any faith in terms of that. But utmost respect. I think think about it, Russell Westbrook leads in rebounds and assists on this team, which is something the Wizards have never, ever had before. Bradley Beal doesn't pass the ball because he's the one who has a point. So I'm still impressed. We think we're seeing a lot of decline in Russell Westbrook, but I'm still genuinely impressed by the explosiveness that's still benefiting him.
Yeah, we love good guy Russ, even though I wouldn't love him on my team. I'm happy that he's like finally. It's not such a bummer to watch him. It was for a little while. It looked pretty bad, but now it looks like he's healthier. He's able to actually get to the rim. It's been pretty good. But speaking of great transitions and health, unfortunately, on a bit of a reverse turn here from our friend Russell Westbrook, a young Bronny James has torn his meniscus and will likely miss the spring scheduled sophomore season. What do you guys think this means for Bronny? He was already, as a freshman, he got to play with that varsity team, but he didn't play much. This was probably going to be a big year for him. What do you guys think this means for Bronny?
I wish I knew more about that injury, which I don't. So I'm curious to see how.
I think it's kind of what Kristaps Porzingis did, right? Like it was the torn meniscus.
Yeah. Porzingis and Russell Westbrook too.
And Russ, yeah.
I guess I'm worried for his future health and if that will be an impact moving forward. But I don't know if because he's so young that he'll be able to recover better long term, and it just like affected someone like KP because he's like tall and lanky and like a little older than Bronny, obviously. So I don't know, but I mean, it sucks to see. Obviously, I think everyone wanted to just watch Bronny at all times on his climb up because I feel like everyone expects such great things from him. So it sucks to hear about, but also like he's still like a teenager. So I feel like everyone's jumping on this hype train of like, oh my God, like Bronny's tore his meniscus. Oh my God. But like he's just a teenager right now. Like we can't hype him up like he is the next LeBron James or something like that, because he's not yet. He's just a teenager who's playing basketball. And like I think people need to lay off him and let him kind of do his own thing and get back to it when he can, you know?
Yeah. Sam, do you think that it's kind of a product of the era? There's really no way around it, and a product of his father. But do you think that this attention that Bronny gets, where we're talking about a sophomore in high school tearing his meniscus, do you think this is something that's productive? Do you think it's something that's like worthwhile for a guy like Bronny, like a kid like Bronny? Like, what do you think about this situation?
Yeah, I mean, it sucks. I know LeBron made it very open that he regrets naming his son after himself because it does carry a big baggage. We did see it with like Jordan's kid. Kind of just felt because like I mean like it'd be so hard to be like Jordan. Right? You can't be like Mike, but it'll never happen. Like you can try as much as you want, but you can't. I think the same thing comes to LeBron's terms. The game has completely changed. You know, we don't need bulky player. Everyone lanky. And I think the real issue comes into like AAU basketball because that's how you get your recognition. You see those overtime clips, or you see House of Highlight clips of all these like high school kids just doing ridiculous dunks and they're like 14 years old. And you're like, realistically, you probably shouldn't do that. Because I mean, like, we didn't hear about Zion. The only way we heard about Zion was because we watched 10-second clips of him doing windmill dunks in like 10th grade or something at that point. And we were like, oh my God, I can't wait for this guy. And now we're seeing the impact come on to Zion. We see him, he is kind of sluggish now. I mean, I'm hoping that, once again, I'm going to emphasize to everyone, I hope all of my opinions are wrong because I want the league to be the best thing ever with all the best players. But it just sucks, being Bronny James.
Yeah.
I hear he's a great Twitch player. He's on COD lately. Kevin, I know you're in the war zone sometimes. Maybe you can hook up, link up. Maybe Ninja Drake can join you as well. Set a whole Shindig,
Yeah, that sounds like a party. Yeah, I mean, it's a bummer, and like you said, Zion had a similar injury that caused him to miss most of his rookie season. I will say it helps being, I think it's probably kind of beneficial that he's as young as he is. It gives him, I think, a little more leeway recovery-wise. I mean, Zion right now, I'll be honest, offensively, he looks pretty unstoppable. You keep seeing stat lines from Zion that are like, he was like 13 of 16 and he took every single shot from within 5 feet. Like, it's just shit that you don't see anymore. So, I'm not crazy worried about it. I'm sure that if Bronny is like, and we don't even really know if he is because he's so young, but like if he is the kind of talent that is going to be in the NBA and going to be like a really impactful NBA player, I think this is just a roadblock, and I think that he'll be able to come back fine. But someone who's not going to be coming back fine to work next week, Minnesota fired Ryan Saunders, replaced him with Chris Finch, an assistant coach on the Raptors, who reportedly played a big role in developing other big guys like Jokic and AD back in Denver and then in New Orleans, respectively. This hire, it received a big wave of criticism. Doesn't seem to have had much of an impact yet, results-wise. Granted, hard to have a turnaround fast like that with no real practice or anything like that. But what do you guys think of this situation? Was it a fair hiring process, do you think? And was it a smart hire? And what do you think this is going to do for our friend Karl Anthony Towns? I'll start with Kevin, who is not as friendly with Karl Anthony Towns.
Okay, I love to. Cat's definitely one of those people I love to give shit, but as a player, like I do respect him. I think he's a really good player, but it's easy to give him shit a bunch. Whereas like someone like Paul George, no respect, trash player.
He's stuck in the Paul George. He's stuck in.
Cat's not there. He's in a different league. But that being said, I think this is tough because obviously you don't know what happens behind closed doors with those kind of conversations, and if there was some actual big reason why they didn't go with Vanderpool, but without having all that information, it definitely seems a little sus that they have this like assistant coach that's been there a while that's like proven that he's good and he doesn't get the job, whereas this like other white guys coming in that does get the job. So I think Dame with that criticism had some point. But that being said, I think Finch does sound like a good fit for this team. I think that's yet to be seen, but I think especially because he has that we know he's played a big role with the AD Jokic. That makes sense to have him on a team where Cat is your franchise player. So I'm interested to see what happens, and I'm interested to see if that clearly becomes the right decision very soon, or we see Vanderpool end up going somewhere else and being really, really good because he gets the chance to. So I don't know.
Yeah, Sam, what do you think about this situation? It was admittedly a little shady. You know, they fire Ryan Saunders. They got our boy Chris Finch here within a couple of hours. It felt like, you know, it all happened really fast. So obviously, it's not something where you can assume that there was a lot of interviewing going on. There was no rumors of any of that. What do you think about this process? Is this something that the league, you know, obviously they're not going to take the job away from Chris Finch. It's his now until he gets fired because this team's trash. But, like, is this something that the league should take as an example to make stricter policies when it comes to these kind of hirings?
Yeah, I think it's hard to make some sort of restriction because it's like, let's say, like if Mike D'Antoni was on the market, would you not go for him, kind of thing? And like if he's interested, would you go? Like if you had some experience, I could see that argument. I'd like to first, I'll say Gerson Rosas is a crook. He worked under Daryl Morey in Houston, got the job in Minnesota. He's responsible for bringing D'Angelo Russell to the Timberwolves, and they played at most like 10 games together over 2 seasons. 5 games. That's embarrassing, you know. That should speak to the staff. Like, how are you not keeping your players healthy? Look, we've all played 2K. You got some D+ like training staff at that point. But apparently Gerson Rosas, Chris Finch worked in Houston in player development as well. So that's why they had contacts before. So they must have just been keeping in touch, and they say, hey, when I get Ryan Saunders out of here, who was the youngest head coach in NBA history at 34? That's nuts. He was hired at 32, which is he was set up to fail completely. I'm pretty sure they didn't listen to any of his input because Rosas thought he was like Morey Jr. and he can just make any random call and it will work out. He's the polar opposite. He just needs like Sam Hinkie level, except trade all your assets and they get nothing out of it because they're gonna lose. They're gonna lose the first pick again. It's gonna happen somehow. I don't know how they're doing it, but it's a shame that Cat has to go through it because I think there is wasted talent. I think that you need the veteran coach. Like even I would be okay if like if Nick Nurse was in Minnesota, I think there could be a real shakeup because I think we saw the geniusness behind it. I know Kawhi Leonard was a part of that success as well, but I don't think any of us really thought that team was going to be like NBA champions. Like we thought the Warriors, even without KD, we still thought the Warriors. Even without Clay, we thought, okay, I think Steph Curry can still win it against this Toronto Raptors team. But it's for me, I don't understand firing a coach midway through the season. There's literally no logic because you immediately create instability with the entire franchise. You lose the locker room completely, no trust at all, and it just makes sense to have like David Vanderpool or any assistant on the Minnesota side to become the just temporary interim coach because you're not promising the job. You just need to tell them finish the season and we'll give you a pay grade at that point. But it's an embarrassing organization. That's all I got to say.
It is. And for some reason, Karl Anthony Towns, he said out loud, he says, I want to win in Minnesota. I'm a loyal guy. That's what they all say. Giannis actually meant it apparently, and that's one of however many. You know, and here's what I'll say. I don't know how many years he has left on his contract, but once he gets down to 2 or 1, Karl, the weather's usually nicer in Dallas. There's Yeah, they're going to be shipping out a lanky Latvian guy sometime soon, so there's going to be space for you there next to Luka Doncic. Create the best offensive pairing, maybe in the history of the league. I'll say it. I'm spicy. But hey, and I think that they would be able to obviously play a lot together, get a lot of minutes. They're young guys, but speaking of someone who's getting maybe a little too many minutes at the moment, LeBron James. The man is playing huge minutes right now, and he is 36 years old. What are we doing here? AD's out. Obviously, they need him as much as they can. LeBron says, hey, I'm here to play. I don't need rest. I'm LeBron James. Do you think that's maybe a little bit of cap, Kevin? Are you buying this? Do you think this is a good thing for the Lakers to have LeBron having games consistently above 36 minutes?
I was going to say, as the, again, resident Lakers fan, LeBron, chill. Hold up, man. Like, no one cares about Lakers regular season at this point. Like, they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to be good. And then when they get to the playoffs, then LeBron can turn on these Jets and play 44 minutes a game if he wants to, because he'll be well rested. But now, while you're playing someone like the Knicks or something like that, you don't need to play 35 minutes a game. Stop it. Chill, dude. Like, you have a good team. Let the rest of your team learn how to carry themselves without you carrying them. And then that'll make your bench and the other guys on your team better players overall. And then when you have to lean on them later in the playoffs, they'll actually know what to do without you. So I think he definitely needs to chill a little bit. I mean, respect. Jesus, respect. But I would rather him not play almost 40 minutes a game every night at this point. Like, I think he can chill.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. It's so tricky because the Lakers, they have a lot of issues health-wise as a team right now. They've been missing Dennis Schroeder, obviously missing AD, and they want to not be in a too terrible of a position seeding-wise, but you can tell these guys, they expect to steamroll through the playoffs. I have a question, though. Do you think they're still going to steamroll through the playoffs? Sam?
I think the first time in a long time, I think we had some doubt with the Lakers. I don't doubt LeBron, but I doubt the Lakers. And I think a lot of it, yeah, that's right. Resident Laker fan, wanting your Kyle Kuzma to ball out every night. Markieff Morris, one of the Morrises, whoever it wants to be, whatever Morris it is, it doesn't even matter. There's no way to get this team to victory. And I think it's the reason we see that is because look at the blowouts they've had. It's been like an average of like 16 points a game. And it's a shame because we are wasting a lot of time on LeBron as well, and wasting a lot of minutes just him playing and not getting the W at this point. And it's becoming very clear that the big man role is relevant. Marcus Gasol cannot play that role at all. Montrezl Harrell is a fucking embarrassment of a signing. I'm sorry to say that, but he is not worth. So it wasn't much, but it was not worth that signing because he showed up one every 30 games. And it's not panning out as well. Dennis Schroeder was out though, so I will say that was a big impact and more of a load for LeBron to play, playmaker at that point. But when you see Utah, I think they're okay against the Clippers because they don't have an actual big man, in all honesty. But when you see them playing against big men, it's concerning, especially when you go to the East. When you have to play against a Joel Embiid or you have to play against I was going to say Kevin Durant, but I mean, at that point, it's just offensive. Yeah, it's just offensive. LeBron is 36, okay? He's tired of the shit. Get him all the talent and let him just coast it at that point. And the Anthony Davis thing, smart call because we saw what happened with Kevin Durant, really let me in just cooked, Achilles tear at that point. And Anthony Davis is just not a safe player. When the way he plays is very reckless. He does a lot of spin moves, runs into the paint, and then rolls an ankle. And when you're like 300 pounds and like 7'2", 7'3", I'm terrified. You guys got chicken legs at that point. So this Lakers team I'm very concerned for the Lakers, but I think they can get to the finals still.
Yeah. AD, he's got to stop skipping leg day, just like that man in Dallas, Kristaps Porzingis. There's some trade rumors swirling around our friend KP right now. Mark Cuban's come out and he said they're 100% false. Do you buy it? Do you think that he's already souring on that KP-Luka pairing that he wanted around? He said he wasn't going to make the same mistake he did with Dirk and Steve Nash. He said he wanted them forever. Do you think that forever might be ending a little bit soon?
Yo, this man is a regular on Shark Tank. There's no way you can believe when he comes out and says, no, these rumors are 100% false. Like, I call absolute bullshit on that. That is, if he's not looking around for trades right now, then I think he's kind of stupid, to be honest. I think right now is the time you want to think about, okay, yeah, should we stick with KP or is it worth trying to get someone else? So I think, but again, like, what else is he gonna say? I think if he came out and said that to the public, then that would cause way more issues. So
yeah,
I mean, obviously he's gonna say that, but there's no way that's the actual truth.
Yeah, and we got to remember, Mark Cuban is one of the most public-facing owners in the league. He really wants to project good guy Mark Cuban image everywhere he goes. I got to ask, though, Sam, I would love to hear, well, first you can give your roast version of your assessment of KP's trade value, but then I'd like to hear your honest thoughts. You know, what do you think this guy's actually worth right now? He's been up or down is what I'll say. He's been since coming back. You know, I have a feeling he can hit a stride, but there's some stuff that he just looks off. What do you think that KP's worth on the market?
I know you mentioned earlier, like maybe a cat could come over to Dallas, but what makes it any different at that point? Because neither of them play big or defense. I don't know what will help you there, but
wow, I think if that was ever offered, and who knows, Minnesota, trash ass franchise, maybe they would do something silly like that. But I would leap on you pretty quick. I think man, I saw someone say like Kristaps for a package around like Lauri Markkanen, and I was like, well, that's just the same guy.
exactly.
That's just.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of my comp at first, but I was like, like you said, we definitely seen some strides. It's just not consistent enough. But when he does play, it has been offensively like impactful.
Yeah.
And the thing with Dallas is just like their defensive struggles is what really cost them because they just can't make the last, the final 2 minutes. They just cannot stop the shooter at that point. But I think Porzingis is like, I think he's not one tier, but I'd say he's just behind like a Miles Turner in terms of like how much he can impact the game. Miles Turner is defensive presence where Kristaps Porzingis can be more of it's a very large tree that can shoot the ball from the three. And that's kind of where I rate them, right? They can only play one side of the game effectively. And Kristaps Porzingis can't. I just don't even think. Does anyone really want him? Like, it's probably just a trash team that would want them, right? Like, maybe like Charlotte, like rise him to Charlotte, and then just like give him like a Zeller or a Bismack Biyombo. Like, I don't even know what you want to give. Maybe the Clippers are interested. Maybe they give a call. They send Serge, some trash, some Nick Batum love. But I don't know. I just like it's. I feel like you gotta wait another year just because to boost that value. Because like we see the same thing with Lauri Markkanen, where in his case it's different because he's restricted. But if you restrict him, I don't think anyone's actually that interested, to be honest, because he's not playing well at all. He's not even playing games. So if you do the Kristaps thing, just do it one more year and then assess the value at that point. But I do not think Kristaps Porzingis will be a Maverick for the next 3 years.
I think I agree with you. Yeah, there's a lot going on in Chicago right now. We've been talking about Lauri, his restricted situation, but there's actually another big star over at the Bulls who's got an interesting issue coming up for the franchise. Zach LaVine right now is only eligible for a $104 million 4-year extension from Chicago. When I first heard this, I was actually pretty excited. I was like, okay, we're going to get him really cheap. I dug a little deeper and found the truth is if he can wait out, if he does not sign an extension and becomes instead an unrestricted free agent, he's eligible for a $189 million 4-year contract. This is tricky because that means that the Bulls have to let they either have to completely renegotiate his contract now, not an extension, but a renegotiation, or they have to risk letting him become an unrestricted free agent, at which point he could just dip if he wanted to. If you're the Bulls, what do you do, Sam?
Panic, because this is the guiding light for the franchise. Especially I like Billy Donovan. I think it's just Zach LaVine just really turning it up from an offensive standpoint, and I think he's going to have so much value on the market. I'd be very surprised if he signs the extension, because just knowing, unless he's just like his agent's just that bad and just doesn't tell him that you can make way more money, he's going to have so much value. And I think the best situation is you convince him that, like, hey, it's your team. That could be the one thing, is this is your team. We want to build around you. Or it's a sign and trade. You just try to get something back for him. You could get some first rounders, but it'd be very hard for me. The only argument really is that it's your team. We're going to do it your way. Let's do it that way. I think that's the only way you can really keep it. And then you can betray him, 2-3 years in, where you just do whatever you want. But I think that's the only way you keep it, because I don't think Zach LaVine wants to join another superstar talent.
Yeah. And you know what, Kevin, I would ask for your thoughts on this, but I don't want to hear how Zach's going to be a Laker. Look, I didn't think I would say this even like just several months ago, but I want Zach LaVine around for a long time. He's really proven himself this year. Still like kind of useless defensively, but he's trying, which I appreciate. So I think this is a guy that the Bulls have to build around. It's hard to find guys of his caliber. So if you have one and you're this franchise, you kind of just got to figure it out. Hopefully they can figure their shit out and lose a few more games. Tank for our boy Cade Cunningham, get Zach a point guard. But we got a couple more things here for this episode, and then we'll wrap it up. So we had a little news down in South Beach. My beloved Bam Adebayo gets another bag, signs with Jordan Brand. Are we excited for this? What do we think about this for Bam?
Yo, I gotta say this. I come to the light. I finally understood Bam Adebayo's presence, not purely because he's on fantasy, but I'm actually for the first time, I'm actually looking at his stat value, and I'm like, wow, okay, this guy's actually been a contributor. And I think I found him more interesting just because he was doing it alone when Jimmy was gone as well. Just the composure that he has, and just trying to evolve his game so that when Jimmy's gone, he's able to cover up those flaws for the team. We are seeing Miami's resurgence come back with Jimmy's presence, but well deserved, because it's a double bag at this point. Got that max. Jordan Brand somehow stealing everyone now. Like Puma was doing it, but it's all the trash player. They got DeMarcus Cousins, Danny Green, Kyle Kuzma. Like they got those guys to be the face of Puma. LaMelo's probably the face, but Jordan's got Luka. They got Zion. Like they got Bam now. They got real people that can actually play basketball. I'm sorry to say that, but like Danny Green, you don't deserve the bag anymore. You don't really deserve it. But well deserved, and I think it was much deserved for him. So I'm happy.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I'm happy for Bam. You're right, Jordan is like really signing a lot. LeBron's got to hurry up and launch his brand soon, otherwise everyone's going to be snatched up. So here, Kevin, I'm going to toss this next part to you in a second, but we got our Game of the Week segment here. Last week, we had a rip-roaring good time with the Bucks versus the Pelicans. Kevin, why don't you tell us a little bit about this game? The Bucks won 129-125. Break it down for us, Kevin.
It was beautiful. Not exactly the way I predicted. I had Pelicans winning by a little bit, but as I said, Steve Adams showed up. He was getting those boards. Did a lot for the Pelicans, but it just wasn't enough. Not against Middleton and Giannis combining for 69 points together. Like,
nice.
That scoring duo is, when they're on, they're on. So that team is definitely scary. And even DiVincenzo scored 24 points on the Bucks. Like, I don't think anyone expected him to put up those numbers. But Pelicans were definitely holding their own. They're not a bad team. They just don't have any good depth when like Josh Hart's on your bench and he's like a good player for you. Like, and same with like Eric Bledsoe has to play starting minutes for your team. That's not a good sign. But Lonzo's shown up. Lonzo's doing a lot better, I think, at this part of the season. Zion, absolutely insane offensively, as we hit on earlier in the episode, scoring 34 points that game. And Brandon Ingram doing his thing, consistently getting that like 20, 25 points every game. Not doing a whole lot else, but being that consistent mid-range kind of shooter for them. So I don't know. I think the Pelicans definitely got some potential, but when Bucks are on, they're a scary team. So it was.
I think everything you said is great there, Kevin. There's one thing I want to highlight because it's kind of been the talk of the town, especially this past week after these games. We're starting to really see some more glimpses of Point Zion. We're getting to see Zion actually like initiate offense, take the ball up. He's able to actually we're seeing a lot of drives from Zion. We're seeing a lot of kind of fascinating play that we've never really seen from someone who is like Zion. Like, I guess you could say like Charles Barkley. It's probably the only comp that everyone gives, like a smaller guy who's just thick as shit. But Zion, he's showing, his stat line, he had 34 points, 34, 6, and 8. That's what he went. We obviously want to see more rebounds, but one thing that we're seeing that's fascinating is that Zion is starting to show the kind of distributing skills that he was able to showcase like in high school before he really got huge when he was playing point guard. Sam, obviously Zion will never be a full-time point guard. He doesn't have it would just be impossible. He's just too big, but and it would be misusing him. But what do you think of this? Like, is this kind of, does this kind of honestly give you a little bit of like Jason Kidd era Giannis vibes? Like, how are you feeling about this?
Jason Kidd Giannis, man, I miss those days. Not gonna lie, I did see him practice back in college. It's good because it's sleeper Giannis mode now. Like, we're not gonna talk about Giannis, and I think now we can see him just play good basketball moving forward. I think the MVP hype, I think it does mess up with his vibe, and it's good to see that he's still going to rep his guy Middleton too. Along with that, I think it's actually a surprisingly good combo. And like I mentioned before in previous episodes, I think Giannis is the 1 through 3 quarters, and it is the Middleton show in the fourth quarter because I can rely on a consistent shooter. Really all around, I'm actually very impressed by his mid range. At the free throw, you can just drive it and then just pop it up. Quick shot for him, and this team it's a shame because they probably should have been in the finals over the last 2 years, and they just fell apart at that point. Yeah. And this year, it's even worse because the East got strong. And by East got strong, I meant 2 teams got really good. The 2 teams above you got very good. And but I like this Giannis more because we're not talking about him. I think we're seeing his real gameplay come out.
I agree. And one fun little Giannis fact is that we're starting to see him experiment with a floater. That's great news. Just makes him a little more dangerous as an offensive creator. So we love to see that. This week, the game of the week we have going for you is Suns versus Lakers. Let's break it down a bit. This is actually kind of a heavyweight battle here. These are 2 teams hanging out at the top of the Western Conference. Mm-hmm. I think the Suns would be like a 1 or 2 seed in the East right now. So they're legit, and the Lakers are the Lakers, but obviously struggling without AD. What are we excited about for this matchup? Who do you think is going to be kind of an X factor here? And who do you think is going to win?
Kevin, it's your game. It's your game, boy. Lead us off.
I think one of the biggest things I'm actually excited to see about this is how Schroeder plays against Chris Paul. And if he can step up and actually be like a good defensive player against Chris Paul, I think that's going to help the Lakers a lot. Shutting him down or forcing him to make Chris Paul to make poorer decisions. And I think Schroeder can do that. And I don't know, I feel like Devin Booker is good, but I feel like this year, because he's so ingrained in his much more shooting guard role, I think the Lakers have an advantage in that they can predict that. Whereas last year and the year before, I think Devin Booker was so much more unpredictable. He could facilitate, he could do, he could run up to the basket and make a floater or something like that. But now it's kind of, he's going to take that like long range shot at like off the dribble almost. So I think the Lakers can work with that a lot. That being said, I think the Suns have definitely some advantages over the Lakers. So I'm interested to. I think point being that the Lakers don't have AD, so they have that giant hole in their team that the Suns can, I think, take advantage of. So I don't know. I think it'll be a good game. I think for me, I gotta give to the Lakers, but I think it's gonna be really close. Especially I think DeAndre Ayton, if he can show up and actually, is he healthy? I don't even know if he's healthy. I never know if he's healthy or not.
I think he's yeah.
I feel like he's one of those players that I will assume he's healthy, and then when I assume he's healthy, he's injured. You know?
Yeah.
But anyway, I got Lakers by 4.
Oh. Sam, what do you think?
X Factor is going to be DeAndre Ayton, like Kevin said.
I agree.
It's a big hole, and it's just remaking Lob City 2.0. You know, Chris Paul is the perfect point guard. Kevin, should we make that mistake again about the whole Ricky Rubio? Should we bring it up? I know we're overplaying it every time.
We've already Paul George check, Ricky Rubio check.
We're good now. And I think for the Lakers, the X Factor will have to be Kyle Kuzma. As much as I love, and it's a really love-hate relationship with him. It's like he was the one Laker they kept because they had so much help, and he's just been like absolutely garbage. Yet he got the bag somehow, and I'm just so surprised. So props to him. He got the bag, but I think he was going to be the X Factor just because his gameplay is very unpredictable. He can actually drive very well. He's a good slasher. I'm just very worried about his finishing ability. And Kevin has a good matchup I didn't even think about. Is Chris Paul versus Dennis Schroeder. You know, former teammates. The guys understand each other's game well. And it'll be very interesting to see that matchups. But I think it's going to be DeAndre Ayton's game. It's going to be 30 in the bag. And it's going to be Suns by 16.
Wow.
Suns by 16.
I think an underrated matchup in this game is Devin Booker versus Alex Caruso. Caruso's got something to prove after Booker took his all-star slot. So that's something we got to keep an eye on. I think that the Suns are going to win this game. The Lakers, look, the Lakers are still awesome. I just don't think that they have, they don't seem to be playing their best basketball is what I'll say. They've really been struggling. And I think that's going to carry them pretty much through the All-Star break. I think is going to just be kind of them just trying to get to that break so they can collect themselves, come back out, and continue to be probably the best team in the league once they get Anthony Davis back. For now, I'm saying the Suns are going to win this game. And I'm going to say they'll win this game by 8 points. I still think it'll be relatively close, but I just love, I really like this Suns team. I feel like they're outperforming even the kind of sort of high expectations I had for them this year. And, it all goes back to their guard play, and Ayton's taken a step forward defensively kind of, but offensively it's still kind of odd. I kind of feel like it doesn't get talked enough about how DeAndre Ayton is just sort of like a solid player that was taken number 1 overall in the draft with Luka Doncic. But that's fine because the Suns are winning and the Mavericks are not. So they're I think that's a good call. So I got the Suns, Sam's got the Suns, Kevin, you have the Lakers, of course. I think it's going to be a good game. Everyone tune in. We'll see if we're right. But I think that's all we got for this episode. So I'm going to toss it over to our friend Kevin here to close us out. Do what he does best, Kevin. Why don't you wind down the program? Take it home, baby.
Thank you guys so much for listening. Follow us on wherever you want to follow us, whether that be Facebook, Instagram. I think we have a Twitter. We have a Gmail. You can email us dumb questions, and we'll probably answer them eventually.
Send us questions.
Huh?
Send us questions. We love getting questions.
Please. I think shout out to Brian, I think, for sending us 15 questions or something like that we made a segment out of. That was awesome. But yeah, at the D3 pod, the D3 pod at gmail.com, I think.
Yeah, you're doing great, Kevin. Don't lose steam. Pick it up.
Listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor. I don't know. Yeah. Thanks.
LimeWire.
Sure.
All right. Hell yeah, Kevin. You nailed that shit. We're the Deep 3 Pod. Tune in later this week for our next episode. That's it. See ya.
Stop Asian hate.